This is the new Sachtler tripod fluid head line, Active.
This is a CineD Gear News video.
Welcome everybody to this CineD Gear News video. Today I'm connected to Steve Turner in the UK from Sachtler or Vitek. How are you, Steve?
No, I'm very good, Nino. Very good.
So unfortunately, of course, no IBC this year, no other trade shows whatsoever this year. So we're making the best of this virtual product demo. So what do you have for us? I think you just introduced a new Sachtler head, right?
That's right. So this is the new Active heads. Now, you know me as the product manager for O'Connor, but during these times, I'm helping out because I'm here in the R&D centre here in the UK and I've got access to the product. So I'm standing in for Barbara to demonstrate the product today. So the Active head is what we're launching. We've got 4 heads in the range: the Active 6, the Active 8, the Active 8T, and the Active 10. And these are essentially what would replace the FSB 6, 8, and 10.
Oh wow! Okay, so you're completely replacing the line. What's different with the Active heads?
Well, if you were to go back 5 years ago, and first of all, if you think about actually the O'Connor brand, you're on a movie set, you've got a large crew, and you're controlling everything that's happening behind the camera and in front of the camera. You're doing rehearsals. You're telling the actors when they're going to come on, where they're going to stand. If you look at Vinton's product, also within the Vitek line, and you look up at its sports. Likewise, all right, you don't know exactly what's going to happen on the field, but you know the ball isn't going to go outside the stadium, right? You know, you're constrained. But Sachtler's core products, news gathering, documentary, if you're in a war zone or in a jungle following an animal around trying to capture some wildlife footage, you've got absolutely no control over what's happening in front of the camera. So it's really, really important that you can move around and get that footage really, really quickly. And likewise, actually, you know, if you're an independent content creator and you're trying to shoot a web commercial and you've got a day, you want to try and get as much footage as you can for the edit. And 5 years ago, if you were comparing Sachtler to some of the brands that copy Sachtler, so that a lot of these copycat brands, we still had the lion's market share, and that's because everyone trusts Sachtler's quality. It has great build quality and has great reputation with some of the big broadcasters around the world. But when we were looking at the features between the Sachtler heads and some of these copycat heads, the gap was narrowing. Those products were getting better. And we decided to look at these particular type of customers and say, how can we move things along? And how can we make it faster so that a person owning a Sachtler product can move around and get more shots per day and get more footage than someone else? And we're not talking about a 10% or 15% improvement. We wanted a 4 times, 5 times faster to move around with a Sachtler product than with a competing product. And so we start with the Flowtech, and everyone knows the Flowtech pretty well by now. And we were doing time and motion studies, and we were observing to see what the cameramen were doing and how what was taking up all the time. And obviously one of the things was adjusting all the legs on the tripods, and hence we came up with the Flowtech, where all of the levers are centrally located at the top. So the Active is really the next step in this evolution. And so I'm going to demonstrate the first of the features here. You can see in front of me, I've got a little slider, okay? Now, typically, if I was to move this head to a slider, if it was something like a Dana dolly, I would reach over to the head, I would remove the camera first of all, and then I would undo the ball clamp knob underneath the fluid head, and I would lift it over and I would reassemble it onto the slider. On this kind of slide, I wouldn't be able to do that. What I would have to do is I'd have to remove the Sachtler head, get a wrench or a spanner, and I would remove the spike, the threaded spike from the bottom of the head, which would leave a hole. And then I would have to physically screw the head onto the slider. It would be pointing in the incorrect direction. It's hard to screw on because you've got the pan bar sticking out. And then it ends up pointing in the right direction. So you have to undo the brake and turn it point in the right direction before then finally putting your camera on. And that whole process takes a few minutes, right? But now with the Active system, if I want to move from the tripod to the spreader, I just do this. And the head is now pointing in the correct direction, and it's just taken 1 second. And just to prove that, you know, you can do this with the camera on. I'm afraid, Nino, this isn't the latest camera technology, but it will demonstrate it just as well. So I've got the camera now on top, and I can take the whole head now with the camera, right? And the benefit of that, of course, I don't have to balance. If I take the camera off, I have to rebalance it when I put it back on, right? So now I'm lifting the head off the slider, moving it across, putting it down, and now it's ready to go. So that's the first of the features. And I'm going to move in secondly. We call that SpeedSwap, okay? And how it works is we've got a little spigot. Hopefully you can see that on top of and this just fits. It's just a 3/8 thread. I just screw this accessory on, and I can fit that to the end of my jib. I can have it on my slider. I can have it on a pedestal. I can have it on my camera car, and that allows me to dock the active head wherever. Okay. And now, so the next thing is to level it. Now, to level it, it's the same control, right? It's a lever on the front of the head. I just lift it up, and maybe I'll press the illumination. I lift up the lever, I level, and I close. So all the leveling is also done from the top. Okay? So I'm just going to drop the camera off just because it makes the system a bit heavy, with it being a very old camera. And I'm sorry I haven't got the best setup here, but I'm going to just move you back a little bit. The other benefit to not having a ball clamp knob is that I can now go completely flat. Completely flat to the table and still be able to level the head, because all the leveling, as I said, is done from the top. And I never need to reach underneath there again. Once I've fitted that spigot to the tripod, it's a one-time adjustment. It never needs touching again. Not for 2 years. We've tested this for thousands of cycles, clamping, putting it onto the tripod and off the tripod and re-leveling. It never needs to be readjusted once you've fitted it.
Wow, this is brilliant. I mean, why hasn't this been done before?
It's the very statement is what gets repeated in every single meeting I've had probably 20 of these demos in the last, with our partners, our sales partners, in the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think it's tripods have been something that, you know, there hasn't been much innovation in decades, really. And I mean, you guys obviously with the Flowtech, you found something new. That was something that also a lot of people, you know, were like, why hasn't this been done before? And to me, this seems like on ahead. I mean, obviously, I mean, it's a constant move as a camera operator. You're always kind of below your head because you're constantly leveling it every time you're moving it. Even just not having to do this movement every time is kind of brilliant if it works. So that looks amazing.
Another thing is, if typically, I'm going to stand right up. If the tripod's on max height, let's say if you're in a media shooting news, or you're out shooting in the outdoors, and you're shooting in the outdoors, and you've got the tripod on a rock, it's sometimes quite difficult to level for the reason that you haven't really got a good view down on top of the level bubble, okay? And then you've got a parallax view, and you can't see if the bubble is central within the reticule, okay? So I just want to show you one more neat feature. If you see, of course, we've got the leveling bubble. I think you'll be able to see down on top. If I press and hold, it illuminates all of the controls. So there's a down light under the pan ring, and you can also see it's illuminating the balance and drag controls. And typically, as I say, when you level, you look down on that level bubble, okay? However, this also has a prism mounted underneath the level bubble. So not only can you view the bubble from the top, but you can also see the bubble from the rear of the head, okay? So I can look at the head from the side and see if I'm level, even from a position where the head is actually taller than me. I can still see the bubble and I can still level it, okay? So that's just another feature, okay?
Very nice. Are you, in terms of compatibility with the FSB series, is it still the same plate or has it changed?
It's still the same camera plate on top. And I mean, it's not just these features that we've added. It has an extra 5 balance steps to the FSB 8. The Active 8 has more balance steps. It has 2 more drag steps. So it has, so the normal regular upgrades you would expect to see in a Sachtler fluid head, more balance steps, more balance range. It goes up to 12 kilograms rather than 10, the FSB 8. And so just a general performance improvement. But on top of that, you've got speed leveling, speed swapping, prismatic level bubble, and the ability to get really, really, really low. And so all of those things combined with the flow tech mean that the tripod system is, you can get 3-4 times more shots in a day than someone with a competing system.
Just having the ability to go much lower, I think, is worth a lot. And this movement from going from a tripod to a slider is something that I'm very used to. What I actually do, I use a second head. But of course, I mean, this is, it's kind of like, it adds expense to the system, of course, because you need to buy another head. Because exactly what you're saying, it's just cumbersome to always unscrew and go back and forth. So this makes a lot of difference. What kind of accessory do I need in order? You showed this little bolt that you have. So yeah, that's an accessory you need, of course, to go onto the tripod, right? Or a jib or whatever.
Absolutely. And that's one of 2 accessories. The final thing I'm going to show you is another accessory. So the way this thing works, by the way, is you're not using the strength in your arm, your muscles, to tighten the tie down. There are some powerful springs on the inside of the head that are pulling the clamp up, right? So that's how it's working. It's not muscle power. So you're getting exactly the same amount of force applied every single time, and it always guarantees that it's held, right? But we've got the same mechanism in this accessory here, and you can see the little jaws actually inside of this hole retracting as I clamp up. And this piece here just takes a standard camera plate, okay, and it has the 75mm bore. So the final thing I'm going to show you is, if I bring the tripod back into shot and lower the legs, just angle it up slightly. There's a leveling bubble on this piece, and I can put it on my head and level it in exactly the same way as I did with the head. So there's no screws to undo. I've now there's a camera plate on the bottom of this slider, a standard Sachtler camera plate, the same one actually that is in the top of the active head. And I can now clip that to the top of the tripod. And again, because it's just a lift of the lever on the front, lift the head up and snap it into the top. And now my head is set up on the slider, so I can do these nice sliding shots.
Nice. Wow. This is a setup where I mean, this slider is maybe short enough, but I usually use 2 camera tripods for a slider. So that makes it a lot easier. So
altogether, you've got a much faster system. And now going back to what I was saying at the beginning, if you compare a Sachtler system in this category of tripod next to a competing system, you've got a completely different beast now. Yes, it's slightly more money for your Sachtler system, but you're getting 4 times the amount of footage. All right, Steve, so that's very impressive, but maybe you can go over the different sizes of the active heads again and what they are replacing and what pricing are we looking at and availability. Okay, so we have the Active 6, the Active 8 and the Active 10, and they essentially replace the FSB 6, the FSB 8 and the FSB 10, although they actually have a slightly higher payload as well as these other new features. And the starting price down at the Active 6 is €1,290, and then they go upwards from that point forward. Okay, and when can people get their hands on them? They'll be available at the end of November. Very nice. Well, that is very, very, very cool product. I think innovation in the tripod field is nothing anybody was expecting at this point, but I'm looking forward to reviewing it and testing it and making a video with it and just trying to find out if it actually is true, if we can be 3-4 times faster than usually.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And hopefully we see each other again soon at an actual real trade show.
Yeah, no, I hope so. I'll be glad to be back in the back speaking to people face to face, I must say.
Absolutely. Your beard is bigger than it even usually is. So.
Yes, I know this is a coronavirus issue. Unfortunately, I can't get into the barbers. I'm not usually this unkempt.
All good. I also need a hairdresser. All right. Thank you, and thank you everybody for watching. Stay tuned to CineD's YouTube channel for a lot more gear news, videos, and reviews. And also don't forget to visit our site, CineD.com. We're introducing a lot of new features shortly. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks.